Good evening. The executive session of the Wayne Board of Education regular meeting of August 20th, 2020 was convened virtually through the district software. The statement of compliance setting forth time, date, and location was read in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, and the roll call was taken. The meeting was recessed and is now being reconvened. Can we have the flag for the salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Toback?
Right, so before we get to the main topic for this evening, I wanted to provide the community with an update on a variety of topics. First of all, welcome to the 50 new teachers that are starting their careers in Wayne. Yesterday, we held our annual new teacher orientation program, and for the first time, it was held under a tent to allow live interaction while social distancing. The weather was not the best, but the program to help our new teachers get a good start was excellent. Today, WCBS News came to Wayne Valley High School to broadcast a story about high school sports during the pandemic. In this case, Roger Cutlars, head coach of the Wayne Valley football team, was interviewed along with some of the players to highlight how schools are practicing while taking precautions to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. The broadcast today was at the 6 o'clock and perhaps the 11 o'clock broadcast. Just a clarification regarding high school scheduling. Yesterday, high school cohorts were released at Wayne Hills and Wayne Valley to students and parents, and many were surprised to see their children in cohort B1 or B2. This does not mean that there are 4 cohorts, but it does mean that there was an effort at advanced planning so that when conditions improve, we can go to 2 cohorts instead of 3 without redoing the schedule. So it was really the result of advanced planning. In other news about high school sports, the NJSIA announced today that fall indoor sports will be postponed for this year. However, there is hope that the NJSIA, with some other changes, will allow for an additional 4th season for the 2021 season, and there will be updating starting dates for all sports. In Wayne, the decision ended the current season for girls volleyball and gymnastics at both of our high schools. And we're very sorry, as we know this is upsetting for our student athletes and parents, knowing how hard the players have worked to prepare for the season. Also for the coaches who have worked with the players for many hours. And we also know how much the parents were looking forward to the season. This is especially painful for our senior players and parents, but there is some hope for an opportunity for a season later this year. The last Board of Education meeting, a set of district goals were approved, and it's time to get started with our diversity, equity, and inclusion goal. In particular, we're going to get started with the formation of a committee that will assess nicknames, mascots, slogans, and school symbols that may be offensive or counterproductive to our mission, values, and goals. This includes a review of the Wayne Valley Indian, along with the mascots, slogans, and symbols for every one of our schools. Like most districts in New Jersey, we're going to be engaged in the discussion about a very serious matter that has far-reaching implications for our taxpayers, our parents, our employees, and most of all, our students who depend on us for quality education. We've all been placed in a very difficult situation by first and foremost the coronavirus, and then by an ever-changing response from our state government that has created an almost intolerable situation for our public education system. Many communities are in turmoil. Even stranger is that we have a recovery plan that includes different stages. As a state, we are in stage 2 of our recovery, which is defined as moderate risk activities we started with safeguards. The recovery plan includes a stage 3, and according to the plan, K-12 and higher education may operate in person with reduced capacity. That is, once we reach stage 3, if not. But on August 3rd, we also have limited indoor seating capacity. We still can't go out to dinner. There's a lot of things that are creating questions about what's happening here in New Jersey. And there's a lot of things that seem to be contradictory. But we can control what we can control here in Wayne. In less than 2 months, we've gone from a requirement to provide in-person instruction to then allowing for parents to have their children attend school on a full-time remote basis for any reason. Guidance then changed again, where school districts were able to go to a full virtual model, but only for specific reasons, where school districts are unable to demonstrate inability to meet the necessary health and safety precautions, and they must actively strive to address any deficiencies in order to return all or a portion of its students' population to in-person instruction at the earliest possible date. There is speculation that when students return to school, the virus will spike and lead to a quick shutdown. Others point to states where schools reopened and things did not go well. Although most of the time these are schools in states where the coronavirus has a much greater presence, I think we all recognize there's a good chance we will shut down at some point if the virus spikes, and we have to be ready for this possibility. However, right now in Wayne, we have many days where we have no new cases. And while the virus is certainly here and people are still getting sick, we are in far better shape in New Jersey when compared to the rest of the country. Even when compared to the rest of New Jersey, our Northwest Jersey region is in great shape, and the New Jersey Department of Health has designated this region as low risk. Each region falls into one of 4 COVID risk categories. If a region falls into a very high risk category, the New Jersey Department of Health recommends full remote learning. If a region falls into the high risk category, the Department of Health recommends fully remote learning unless schools can ensure complete adherence to all prevention and control measures. If a region falls into the moderate risk category, then the district should implement remote learning only for students and staff at high risk of severe illness, consider hybrid learning, and fully remote learning. We do not fall into any of these categories, and Wayne and all of Passaic County is in the low risk category. The Department of Health recommends that schools evaluate whether there are students or staff who are at increased risk for severe illness and seek alternative placements to ensure continuity of work or educational services. The Department of Health does not guide schools to implement remote learning in low risk areas. The issue of staff and student health has been a topic of discussion in the central office and across the district for 5 months. Our principals have worked tirelessly over the summer to make sure they have considered every possible health and safety issue, along with our facilities department. What happens if we return and someone gets sick? What about those who are especially vulnerable based on a medical condition? Our return to school plan allows parents to determine what level of risk is acceptable for their children. We believe that our parents are the ones who are in the best position to make that determination. August 17th was our deadline for paperwork for any parent who wanted their children to receive full-time virtual remote instruction. Our numbers changed slightly, and the district now has about 77% of our students returning to in-person education under a hybrid model. Many of our teachers are understandably worried about returning to school because of the realistic fear that they will be exposed to students and staff members who will transmit the coronavirus to them or to their family members. Our teachers and staff members are the ones on the front lines, and they work most directly with our students. This anxiety is present for all who are working with young people because we know so many are asymptomatic, but capable of transmitting the virus to others who may experience more serious symptoms. Our staff members who are vulnerable are protected by Section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and many district employees have exercised their rights to request accommodations. In some cases, staff members have requested to work from home, while in other cases, there have been simple requests like additional personal protective equipment. Board of Education may be voting later to take other steps. On the agenda, we have, the Board of Ed will be voting later to take an additional step to protect the health of students and staff members. On the agenda, we have a contract to hire Dr. David Goldberg to work for the district in an advisory capacity when we have questions about best practices, about how we should best respond to situations we may be facing as related to the pandemic. Dr. Goldberg is a specialist in pediatric infectious disease. While Dr. Goldberg will not replace the guidance we receive from the Department of Health, he will be a great aid to us when important health and safety questions arise. Staff members and students are best protected by the hybrid schedule that we developed. Now that we know which parents will be keeping their children home, we are seeing just how favorable our class sizes are for social distancing now that we are close to having final schedules. In some cases, teachers are left with only 3 to 5 students in their classrooms. That certainly allows for social distancing. However, this is not the norm in our elementary schools, where class sizes of 7 to 9 students are the norm as of today, still very favorable for social distancing. At the high school level, we're still balancing our schedules where our class sizes are no larger than 10 students. At the middle school level, there are some classes of 3 to 5 students, but much like the high schools, even the largest classes are around 10 students based on the cohort model. Because of the reduced number of students, the middle school principals are also scheduling students and teachers in the largest classrooms available to allow for even more social distancing. So the district has a good plan to return to school that places a premium on student and staff safety. We stand at the ready to start our school year under the hybrid model in a way that protects the health of our students and staff members, and we have followed all the guidance we were required to follow. This morning, I was planning to recommend a delay to the start of in-person instruction for students. Students with in-person by just by a few days from September 8th to 11th, not because we're not ready to safely return to school, but in recognition of the challenges faced by our classroom teachers and to allow our teachers and our administrators to work together. This is not easy, and we recognize it. We know it would be of benefit for our staff to receive additional professional development, to gain practice and more experience with live streaming their instruction, and to give the district additional time to ensure our buildings are 100% ready for opening. Then, I spoke to our executive county superintendent based on an article that appeared yesterday where Governor Murphy declared that any schools that go virtual better have a good reason. So I inquired about what was considered by the New Jersey Department of Education as a good reason to go virtual, even for this very limited time period. Those reasons are serious health and safety issues and not time to transition or allow for additional professional development, which would have been the basis for a delay with in-person instruction from my point of view, but not from the Department of Ed's point of view. There's not much that can be done from my point of view at this point, although I do see a benefit in a slight delay for the start of the school year. That is not possible. The HIB report is very simple. There were 2 incidents reported. None of those cases turned out to be actual cases of HIV after investigation.
That concludes your report, Dr. Tabak?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Mr. Moffett, revisions to the agenda?
Yes, we have a few revisions and additions tonight. The first is under the M for Human Resources. We will be revising item 3, which is approval of additional compensation. Line number 22 will be the $55 per hour each, up to 5 hours instead of the 3 that are reflected on the agenda. Line number 23, $55 per hour each, up to 5 hours instead of the 2 that you see before you. Line number 25, $55 per hour each, up to 10 hours instead of 2. Line number 26, $55 per hour each, up to 5 hours instead of 2 that's found on the agenda. The second area we're revising is item number 8, which is approval of permanent substitutes. Lines number 3 through 8 should have a change in the account. Account number changes from 11-130-100-101-03-000 should be changed to 11-120-100-101-00, then 000. Line number 10 through 17, account line should change from 11-130-101-03-000 should be changed to 11-120-100-101-00-000. The next item we're revising is item 12, again in the human resource area. It's approval of district staff. It's item 12. Number 8 for Cynthia Bullis, we're going to add the prorated after the salary. Number 9, Vanessa Franey. Again, we're going to add prorated after salary. Number 17, line 17 is Elam Zuta, which we're going to also add prorated after the salary. Under N, in the policy area, we're going to add item number 2, which is approval of the revision of policy number 1648, which is return to school plan.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and that will read, resolved, move the Board of Education suspend the rules of bylaw 0131 requiring 2 board readings to adopt a policy and adopt policy number 1648, return to school plan with 1 reading and have this policy effective September 1, 2020. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education approve the following revision to policy 1648, return to school plan, previously approved by the board August 6, 2020 board meeting as per attached. And the revision is found under section A.2.c, which reads students, and the insert will be required. Rule out is are strongly encouraged, and it will continue to wear face coverings. Rule out and are required to do so when social distancing cannot be maintained. And it continues after that rule out to read, unless doing so would inhibit the student's health. It is also necessary to acknowledge that enforcing the use of the face coverings may be impractical for young children or individuals with disabilities. That concludes the changes and additions to tonight's agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Moffett. I see we have 309 attendees, and I'm about to open the public session. Unless there's an objection from the board, I will read the statement with 3 minutes per person. Any objection? Okay, thank you, and I'll continue. This portion of the meeting is open to citizens for comment on agenda items only. Residents are to state their names, addresses, and subject matter. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person. Members of the community are discouraged from speaking negatively about an employee or a student. The board bears no responsibility for comments made by the public. Comments regarding employees or students cannot be legally responded to by the board. Other comments may be responded to tonight or at subsequent meetings under old business. Can I get a mover? Mrs. Albanese, second, Mr. Pavlak. Okay, this is agenda items only.
Hello?
You're on. Yes, you're on.
Good evening, board trustees, administration, and the community. My name is Ida Ferrante, and I'm president of the Wayne Education Association. For the record, educators are hardworking, caring professionals who want to see their students inspired and grow as leaders and learners. If requiring them to go into a classroom on September 8th, you are going to have staff members do so begrudgingly, full of anxiety, and with worry. If you force the staff back to these buildings that we call our schools, our first and consuming priority will be on our personal safety. The education of our students will unfortunately have to be a secondary concern. This will be our new normal. Additionally, we have been told many of the specifics to our numerous questions posed will be worked out at the building level. This seems to really be a code for, I really don't know. In 20 days, you're asking staff to meet the high level of academic excellence that Wayne is known for. And we don't have the answers that we need. We don't need these answers 20 days from now or 20 hours before a student's report. We needed those answers 20 days ago. Our school community is at risk right now because of indecision and failure to answer the most basic of questions asked. Which brings us to the buzzword for the day, transparency. Is the school community up to date on aspects of reopening, such as flare-ups of the virus over the summer? We know at least 12 school-aged children in Wayne have tested positive for COVID. Further, a custodian in the district tested positive for corona during the summer. Thankfully, he was in a mostly empty building. But what would have happened during the school year? Could you live with yourself if somebody contracted the virus and brought it to their family? Because other boards, superintendents, and administrators have echoed those same concerns when opting to open all virtually. Perhaps their moral compass points in the correct way forward. There are a few justifiable reasons to start the year with a hybrid method. The hybrid method is best dizzying. It is medically unsafe and educationally inferior. Teachers have zero experience or training. At the very least, there is some equity garnered through our remote experience from last year. The hybrid model is set up to be an unwieldy disaster. Without a pandemic, if one were to present the remote or hybrid plan on its chances for implementation success, it is clear that the remote plan is academically superior. Your administrators won't tell you that the hybrid system is a disaster because it doesn't fit their agenda or they're reluctant to speak up. Some of you sitting here are guilty of the same towards the public. You know what the right and safe decision is. We will not go along with this charade, this deception. It seems some of you have the perverse belief that you need to get the educators back to work, as if it is some sort of show or a victory, like it's some kind of game. Well, I suppose it is, but the problem is you're paying with our health. If there are concerns about a virtual platform, let me put them to rest now. With continued training, we will use a virtual model that requires students to go to school during their scheduled time. Teachers will hold live lessons with all of our students, and we will also continue to use all of the technological tools available to us. I implore you to go all virtual
Time,
tonight.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ferrante, and thank you. Your time is up, and I want to remind the rest of the people that this is the public portion on agenda items only. So if you want to speak to an agenda item, kindly start by stating which one you're going to speak about, or you'll have to wait for the second public portion. Thank you very much. Next speaker, Dr. Bouchard.
Yes, hello. My name is Dennis Carroll. I'd like to speak on the school reopening. I'm a teacher, and unfortunately, as I must remind you all, I'm a human being. I have been a faithful servant to the residents of Wayne for roughly 24 years. There's nothing that makes me happier than to be in the classroom. I teach social studies. This year, I started teaching a new course, Human Rights in World History. These studies often end up revolving around how those in power will dominate lesser people and often put them into situations where they take away their fundamental rights of life, liberty, and property. And we study how those in power will force less fortunate people into situations and do things that they themselves would never do, and put themselves in danger of losing their rights. So I would like you to do something for me, board members. I invite you to have your next meeting in my classroom. Room 238 in Wayne Valley. You'll love it. When you enter this brick oven of a building, you'll find the stairs to the second floor. But don't touch the railing. It's probably playing host, as 100 or more students have touched it that day. You'll know you're getting close to my room when every step you take, you'll go up 5 degrees in humidity and temperature. You wouldn't think it could get any hotter, but once you go into my room, you find out that that's not true. Next, I ask you to put on your mask and make your best effort to breathe. I apologize for the paint. The place hasn't been painted in over 25 years. And nothing's really been done. Oh, I stand corrected. They did put in windows that don't open. That's really very helpful in this time. So if you're waiting for a cool breeze, you're going to be waiting for a long time. And a fan? No, I'm afraid that's not allowed. And it doesn't matter anyway. I can't power it. For all of the boasting about our technology, I have one outlet in my entire room, and that is jerry-rigged to my computer with extension cords running half the room, which is a violation of both CUSAC and the fire code. Hopefully, you won't have to use the faculty restrooms, which have always been a disgrace and an indignity to us. Cramped, reeking with no ventilation or windows, just cinder blocks and stench. If you have to use the lone toilet in our section, I suggest you get tested. It is not a sight or a smell that you would soon forget visiting this room. Now let's add a little Corona to the mix. My point is several. One is the clear absurdity that for safety, you are meeting remotely and meanwhile contemplating ordering us to go back into the room with a bunch of children. That is why I need you in my room the next meeting you have. Get nice and close, because the kids certainly will. To educators, decisions that you're about to make mean more than the platitudes that we often hear from you. We don't need cliches. We need actions to protect our lives. 2, entering many of our schools is like going back in time. Old ventilation systems, no air conditioning, windows that don't open. Schools shouldn't under any circumstance be a test case for reopening. It's very nice of you to volunteer for me.
Mr. Carroll, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I have to stop you.
Thank you, Ms. Kazan.
Thank you very much. Next caller.
Hi, I'm Rob Sardi. I work at Schuyler Colfax, and I'm the WA treasurer. I've been teaching for 22 years and I've never really had a year like this. Every year right now, I'm super excited about going in. I'm slightly nervous about the kids I'm going to be meeting, but now I have this sense of trepidation. Doesn't matter how this pans out. I'm not looking forward to this year, whether we begin the school year in an all virtual format or hybrid model. We know this is not an ideal situation for students, parents, or for teachers and staff. We are a community that's split right now. I'm disheartened as I read social media comments that are attached to articles or forwarded to me by concerned parents that teachers in Wayne and across the country went from being heroes in the spring and are now targets of countless negative comments, and we've really just become the villains. The perception presented by many people in the community is that we don't want to work, teachers are lazy, teachers are selfish, and that teachers don't care about the children of Wayne. You know that's wrong. The reality is that the virtual model of instruction is substantially more challenging than traditional in-person teaching. It is not an easy way out. Live streaming with our students requires more planning and places us in a position of further scrutiny from the community. We care about the health of our students and their families. And if it's okay, because it doesn't seem like for a lot of people, we care about the health of ourselves and our families. The information at the last community forum it didn't sit well for me. It said that we were perfectly ready, materials were in place, everything's fine. We were informed that hand sanitizers were currently installed in every classroom, that every school was equipped with shields and recommended PPE, and the ventilation systems were in compliance, or at least we'd be able to open the windows a little bit more. 2 days later, I went to school, and the reality was there was no hand sanitizing stations in any of the rooms in my hallway. Are there shields? They weren't in the buildings. Are there going to be some for some students? Yes. Will they be in all schools? Yeah, but not for all students. 2 days after the community forum, the PPE wasn't in the schools. There's no signage in the hallways or in the classroom. Those items were in progress and not completed as suggested in the last meeting. It's miscommunications like these that concern members of the WA and the community and make us question if we are actually as prepared as a district as we think we are. Having a clear picture of the current situation clearly can impact a family's decision on what model of instruction best suits for them. The perception also is that teachers are the only ones that are worried about the reopening. The reality is that we know that the board is. Some of you were ready to come in for in-person, and some of you were nervous. What you guys ultimately apparently decided to do was go all virtual. It's kind of like what we're asking right now. We know that the custodial staff is also very nervous, and they just want a couple of...
I'm sorry to stop you now, but that's your time. Thank you very much.
I thank you for the time that you gave me.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my call. My name's Tara Daly, and I have 3 children in the Wayne school system. And thank you for the plan that you put together. I appreciate it. You know, we love our teachers here in Wayne. We feel they're essential employees. And I'm speaking in regards to the plan to come back. I know that the teachers are expressing that they're nervous and anxious and scared. These are emotions that we all feel as humans. And all of us that have been working the whole time during the pandemic, we understand and we can empathize with you. But the truth is, and when they speak about how things went in the spring, it caught us off guard. We were all unprepared and we had to adjust. Now we've had time. We all know what we have to do. We wear masks, we wash our hands, we social distance. That's all we can do. No one can predict the future or what's going to happen. But these children need their teachers. They need their classmates. That's how they learn best in a group. The parents that are asking for the teachers to return, we're not being critical of you. We're telling you that you're essential and you're needed and you're important. And just like the workers at Trader Joe's, at Stop and Shop, our healthcare workers, all the people that have been working the entire time, and we're asking you to come back. To Mrs. Ferrante's comments about a moral compass, I will say that when we as a community saw the questions that were going around, such as, will you be willing to provide out extra help? Will you be willing to provide teacher recommendation letters for children to go to college? Those questions don't seem like you're concerned about the health and well-being. Those seem like bullying tactics. And it was very hard and upsetting for us parents to see that is your attitude. And we were concerned about those tactics being brought on and the teachers putting them in place where they had to answer those questions. So again, I appreciate the plan that you've made. I like that there's options for people to stay at home if they want to. The virtual world is not good enough for some of these students. For the children with learning disabilities, that they cannot have access to their one-on-one learning, their IEPs cannot be completed. They need to go in and they need their teachers present. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Hello. 5 months ago, we were all thrown into a world of virtual teaching. Almost immediately, teachers were painted as heroes. Now we're being called greedy and selfish. If worrying about our own lives and the lives of our students makes us greedy and selfish, then so be it. We will not apologize for standing up and saying out loud, it is not safe for our students to be back in the classroom. During fire drills, I make sure every single one of my kids is safely out of the building before me. During an evacuation drill, I make sure every single student makes it to our designated location, walking on busy streets. Active shooter drills, I make sure all of my students are hiding while I'm locking down the room and checking the hall for any children that might be there. Then I go and I stand in front of them. I, along with all of my colleagues, have proven over and over again that we put our students' lives and safety in front of our own. You all trust us to do that, to do what is best for them in an emergency situation. Well, guess what? We are in an emergency situation. For anyone saying that kids need to go back to school for normalcy and in-person instruction, you do not fully understand what school will look like in September. I've taught first grade for 14 years. Sometimes I joke with my kids that I'm going to shoe tie in the Olympics because I've gotten so good at it. In September, I won't be able to tie their shoes. I won't be able to help zip up a coat or help open a stuck backpack. I will be in front of the room with markings on the floor 6 feet apart from all my kids wearing a mask. More importantly, when my kids come in scared, which they will when they have to quickly learn all of the new rules and procedures due to COVID, I won't be able to give that reassuring smile or give them that little hug that they need. Academically, think about how hard it will be to teach those kids how to read with those masks on, or how they're going to be able to learn those math concepts without picking up the counters. Think about how safe it's going to be dropping your child off at 8:35 when our teacher's contract doesn't have them working with kids until 8:50. That's not the in-person instruction that our kids deserve. I, along with our president, am a mother. We've both chosen to opt our own children into virtual learning. We wouldn't be good teachers if we kept our own children home and safe, but were willing to let our students return to in-person instruction. We're telling you that it's not safe. Maybe administration should actually tell the parents that kids will be cleaning their own desks in between classes, or that the PM kindergarten kids are going to be walking into a classroom that was sprayed with sanitizer, assuming one of the two custodians actually had time to spray it. I can only hope that our district values our health and our children's health like Bloomfield and Passaic, who chose to go remote instead of hiring yet another consultant. Dr. Toback, did you in fact sign the attestation document, the document that certifies that the school district has developed and will implement a reopening plan for the 2021 school year that satisfies all of the necessary criteria? Our plan is not enough. There is not enough being.
I'm sorry, that's your time. You're on.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ann Palmieri, and I'm the second vice president of the WEA. I am also a middle school science teacher and will be looking at things through that lens. When you are mapping a plan, part of the process is research of what scientific work has already been done on the topic. Luckily, we aren't pioneering this particular topic in a vacuum, and we can look to school districts that have already opened and then closed. This is probably because children play a larger role in the spread of the virus than anyone had previously thought. Today, the Harvard Gazette reported, although children with COVID-19 are not as likely to become as seriously ill as adults, as asymptomatic carriers or carriers with few symptoms attending school, they can spread infection and bring the virus into their homes. The study also found that children can carry a high viral load, meaning they are more contagious. In research, it's best to look for multiple sources, so I continued my search. States who have already begun the school year are already feeling the repercussions of bringing people together. As Dr. Toback mentioned, it's best to compare states with the same level of risk. According to COVID Act Now, Pennsylvania and Ohio are of the same level of risk as New Jersey. Pennsylvania had 29 different instances with just their summer athletics alone. Ohio had 33 instances. Repeating the mistakes of others shouldn't be part of our planning process. We always like to think that we will be better prepared and these things won't happen in Wayne, but let's follow one student through their day. After riding the bus, they are going through the hallway, they will reach their first classroom. Their first of 9 different rooms if they are a middle schooler. They will touch their desk, maybe the pencil sharpener, maybe the child next to them sneezes, maybe they use common lab materials or art supplies. Eventually, they will need to use the restroom where they will touch the bathroom sink, the bathroom stall locks, sink handles, paper towel dispensers, because none of these are touchless. Then they go home after coming in contact with at least 10 children and 1 teacher per class. That totals a minimum of 90 students, 9 teachers, and 9 desk or table surfaces. This is not counting areas that are incalculable, such as stairway railings, water fountains, and any other high contact areas. When you consider this, combine it with the findings from Harvard, that infected children often carry higher viral loads as they go through their day. While the district has been working around the clock to prepare, we just aren't there yet. We aren't there with enough hand sanitizing stations or desk shields to protect the stray sneeze. The number that's been ordered isn't enough for even enough of the quarter of the student population. The Chromebooks for elementary teachers will not be here until the 2nd or 3rd week in September, and not all of the PPE we need to open has hit the buildings yet. The markings on the floor to help assist with social distancing have not been placed, and despite today being particularly pleasant, by now most of us have probably experienced what wearing a mask in an unair-conditioned space can feel like. A very notable gap is that the Department of Health recommends, in conjunction with the local health department, we identify rapid testing resources for when staff and students develop symptoms. Again, through a data-driven lens, how can we make informed
Sorry to stop you, Ms. Palmieri. That's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller.
Hello?
You're on.
Hi, Eileen D'Amico, 29 Manor Drive. I guess I first want to, again, as I did a couple meetings ago, thank everybody, administration and all those who work behind the scenes for all of the hard work that went into the return to school plan. I know that was a Herculean effort, and I applaud all the work that went into it. You know, listening and watching the news and reading social media the last couple of days, I guess I'm just really confused. We have a plan. It seems as safe a plan as any at this point. And as I understand it, it's been approved. It's been approved by the Board of Ed. It's been approved as safe by the applicable state agencies. So what I'm trying to wrap my head around in all this is that if we're following, or if our state and the appropriate agencies are following the science as they've been claiming all along, and the science indicates that this plan is safe, then why at this point are we looking to question it? Why wouldn't we follow it? We've been following the state government, we've been following the Department of Health and their version of safe and the science all along. Now all of a sudden that science isn't good enough, and you know, emotion, which rightfully so, is very high, and fear and anger and frustration, but all those are coming into play to make a decision that really needs to be based on what the science deems safe. I also keep hearing that we don't feel it's safe yet. We don't feel it's safe enough. So my question is, and I have yet to get an answer, then when is it going to be safe? Is it going to be safe when we have 100% guarantee that no one is going to get COVID? That's never going to happen. Are we feeling safe when we have no more cases in Wayne or in New Jersey? Well, we may as well plan to go virtual for the next, I don't know how many years, because that's also probably never going to happen. It's not how a virus works. I don't know when is it that we would feel safe enough. And, look, as a parent of a now high school senior, a lot's been said about virtual and what the virtual model looks like. And I think what concerns many parents, myself included, is that we still don't have a clear picture of what virtual would look like or will look like, because we will have virtual days in the fall. And I think perhaps if we knew exactly what that would look like, it may ease some angst, it may not. But I can tell you, if it looks anything like what it looked like in the spring, that won't cut it. As an example, my son, who was a then high school junior, had zero, and I'm not exaggerating, zero interaction with any but two of his teachers from March to June. No email, no calls, no live lectures, no Zoom meetings, no videotaped live lectures, nothing. His interaction, or his education, if you will, was assignments posted on Google Classroom, both in class, read these notes, here's the notes for the topic, learn them yourself, basically, and then go do the homework, and you can email me if you have questions. And that went from March to June for all but two subjects. Now, I'm not blaming the teachers. Everyone was thrust into this. No one was prepared. No one was given the proper tools or resources. But if anything close to that is the plan for virtual in the fall, that's not education, and that's not good enough.
That's your time, Ms. D'Amico.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Next.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Hi, I'm Linda Del Pizzo. I'm a teacher in Wayne, and I want to talk about the school's opening. And first of all, I want to say that I really respect all of you for all of the work that you've done. I'm going to get a little personal now, because that's one of the aspects of teaching that I enjoy so much in my 29 years in Wayne and 5 years in Irvington. I watched my mother die from this disease in May. I watched her dying via a Zoom at Morristown Hospital. She was alone and by herself. I couldn't help her. I couldn't be there. She lived in an assisted living facility in Madison. Now, granted, she was much older than the high school students and the middle school students and the grammar school students, but she caught it from someone who was asymptomatic or had mild symptoms, because she was locked in her room for March. I didn't get to see her. I just talked to her on the phone. So you can see this experience has made me very nervous, since younger students, younger people, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous right now, can be asymptomatic and can pass it on to other people. Granted, more old people have died from this or have gotten very ill, but there have been people of all different ages that have either died and or become ill or recover and have severe medical ailments afterwards. So I just wanted to give you a personal touch about how some of the teachers are feeling, especially those that have seen the destruction that this virus has done firsthand. Again, I respect you all, but I personally don't think it's safe. And I think Dr. Toback said that we're in a low-risk area, but Patterson is closing, and they're bordered right with us. So how does their risk change? Maybe they don't have, obviously it's a different school system. I went to Kennedy High School in Patterson. I thought it was a great school system. But I just wanted to give you my personal feelings about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I live at 94 Balsam Road. I'm a healthcare worker, and one of the things in this plan that I've noticed that's missing is that you guys are in testing. So where is that in the plan? That's what I'd like to know.
Thank you. Next caller. I think you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello?
You
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi. My name is Heather Potts. I'm going to talk about the school reopening. I'm a science teacher at Wayne Valley High School, and I'm also chair of the Health and Safety Committee for the WEA. I am deeply concerned about the plan for returning to school, even using a hybrid model to attempt to limit the spread of COVID-19 through our school population. Models have shown that infection rates in Passaic County have been increasing since June, and the Wayne Return to School plan has significant holes in safety. This is especially in regards to the school PPE, physical barriers, isolation methods, and most notably ventilation in the classrooms and other key areas of the schools. The proposed plan lacks details and does not meet suggested safety standards set forth by organizations such as OSHA, AIHA, and ASHRAE. These gaps were identified by closely evaluating the district plan, and detailed documentation has been submitted to the district for review. There are new cases in Wayne being documented nearly every day, often in individuals of school age, which is still an age group that we know the least about when it comes to the long-term impact of COVID-19. And despite low overall cases in New Jersey, this state is still one of the 3 states with the highest number of children showing multi-system inflammatory syndrome, a serious and potentially fatal side effect in some children. Given the consistent new cases in Wayne and that even prior to school opening, staff members who have been on site have been diagnosed with COVID-19, at what point does the school district deem it necessary to close and teach remotely? When can we expect a plan that meets standards of safety to keep our students, community members, and staff safe? I hope the board considers the fact that although we are close to safe, we are not there yet. Opening with a hybrid model now would push us back and ultimately necessitate remote teaching for a longer period of time, at the cost of the health and safety of staff and students, a cost that could be avoided by starting September remotely. So many of us who work in the school have, over our many years of teaching, attended student wakes and have had colleagues and students who have lost someone close to them. We've seen the impact of that, and we've seen the impact of distance learning. Distance learning was not what we wanted, but with proper preparation, it will be a lot better than what it was in the spring, and I'll take that over the former situation any day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, this is Stacy Smith. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I am Stacy Smith, and I am the secretary at Schuyler Colfax Middle School. I am calling on behalf of all of the secretaries in the district. We returned to work in July in the buildings, and our immediate supervisors have been fantastic. However, we still, I will emphasize, still do not have the supplies we were promised in July. I received 1 box of supplies for 3 secretarial offices at Schuyler. I cannot share 1 tub of Clorox wipes and walk around to the 2 other offices and squirt hand sanitizer in my colleagues' hands. There is no signage on the floors for the students or visitors or my colleagues to no social distance. We have 2 full-time custodians during the day and 1 part-time. It is unrealistic to expect them to clean 8 bathrooms as faculty and students go in and out, let alone cleaning other common areas. Many of us as secretaries work in very close proximity to the nurses' offices, which have still not been barriered off. This is a huge concern for many of us. We requested sneeze guards for our offices. I received 4 sneeze guards for 3 secretarial offices. I think it's interesting that many people in the community and across the world have no problem bashing our profession and our apprehension going back to work. However, we have lots of government and corporate offices that have no plan on returning to work until January, and that is just fine with everybody. I hope that the community can realize that a lot of promises are being made and they are not being followed through with. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, state your name and address, please.
Frank Ruggiero for Kimberly Place. I'm a student at Wayne Valley, and I just wanted to discuss both the mascot and the cleanliness of the theater when I went back for senior photos. So first off, I'd like to just say how harmful it is to just keep that mascot. I just don't feel as though it's appropriate to have
Sorry, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to interrupt you because that's
Okay.
not an agenda item.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were just going down that road. There's a second public portion after we go through our votes on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. But I'd like to also discuss the cleanliness of the theater. It makes me afraid that
What?
the cleanliness of the theater, like how clean the theater is. I went back for senior photos and there was sawdust and dust everywhere, and it just makes me afraid, like, if that's not clean, then what else is not cleaned? Because I don't know. I'm very afraid, like, of going back too. So, like, I just, also my heart goes out to Miss Del Piso's mom. I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, just after hearing that, I was like, yeah, I don't want to go back if it's like that. I just do not feel safe. And I'm sure a lot of other students and staff also feel the same way, that they just don't feel safe going back. That is all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder, everyone, this is agenda items only. We have a second public portion on other school-related matters. Next caller. Is there a problem, Dr. Bouchard?
I realized I was up for the second public portion. I apologize.
You're going to need to fix your audio too. It's terrible. Something's wrong. Next caller. Hello?
Good evening. My name is Fred Ayers. I'm a teacher at Schuyler. I would just like to ask you to consider a few things for me, please. At the moment, how many people are allowed to be in a movie theater? What percentage of maximum capacity? 0. At the moment, how many people are allowed to eat dinner inside a restaurant? Maximum capacity? 0. Restaurants, maximum 25% of the total building capacity, and you have to be outside. Can someone please explain to me? I understand what you were saying earlier, Dr. Toback. They're impressive numbers. We've done a great job here in northern New Jersey. Can someone explain to me how they feel it is in any way safe to have 50% of the student body in a building with 100% of the adult staff for 5 hours a day, 4 days a week, when you can't even be indoors or a restaurant at all, never mind for a 2-hour meal? I'm glad you are all comfortable playing literally Russian roulette with my life. I'm not quite as comfortable in that role. I love all our kids. I have the best job on the planet. I am scared literally to death about what can happen to me being with hundreds of kids enclosed in this building every day, every week. I'm scared for my life, literally. Please consider this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Alan Tempescu, 41 Gibbs Drive, about the school reopening. In my opinion, the school district is top-notch. We have wonderful teachers. We have a superintendent who has spent a lot of time leading the development of a reopening schedule. The board has done a phenomenal job in entertaining questions and answers. But the virus has caused a lot of fear, confusion, and a difference of opinions. I've listened to many of the meetings, and as a parent, certain things present concerns to me. One, remote learning must be better this time, better than it was in the spring, and I trust that the reopening plan addresses that. Second, I heard a board member at a last meeting call the reopening and compare it to the COVID wild, wild west. That concerns me. I'm not criticizing the comment, but as a parent, when I hear that, that concerns me. Third, when I hear that parents are going to be taking the temperatures and the symptoms and recording them in good faith for the school to rely on and for parents and teachers to rely on, that concerns me. And then when I hear that they could do it the night before, when we know temperatures can change over the night, that concerns me as well. I'm also concerned about cleaning of desks in between classes when there's 6 minutes. I don't know about you, but I can't find Lysol wipes in the supermarket. How are we getting all these antibacterial wipes that all the kids are going to be cleaning their desks for the 6 minutes they have? Going classroom to classroom. That concerns me. And finally, I'm concerned when I read in the Wayne Patch on August 17th, just this week, that Bergen, Hudson, and Passaic counties, where the coronavirus outbreaks originated and infected tens of thousands of people, are now at risk of an outbreak. And according to COVID Act Now, Passaic County is ranked highest in terms of infection rates in New Jersey. It's on August 17th, do a Google from the Wayne Patch. I applaud everyone for doing the reopening plan. Everyone has worked hard on it. But as a parent, I hope I get answers to these questions. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lee Madar, 23 Billings Avenue. I am a student currently attending Wayne Valley High School. First off, I want to thank all of my teachers because they will be sacrificing so much for us. I also want to apologize to all of my teachers for this horrible situation they're being put through. When will you, as the board, understand the risk of going back to school? Is it going to be when a student dies? When a teacher dies? Are you aware of how devastating that is going to be? When a student's close friend dies, when someone's favorite teacher dies, how are we going to deal with that? It's absolutely sickening to see how little the board cares about our teachers. So many teachers have already spoken out, and many will continue to speak out. Please, I urge you as the board to change your decision. Make the schools fully virtual. Also, I have a question. Is the district goals on our agenda today?
No.
Yeah?
No.
All right. So I want to talk about the I want to talk about the district goals today.
We'll have to come back for the second public portion.
More inclusive, equal, and understanding.
Sorry, please.
One of the ways we can do that.
Miss, not at this public portion. It's not on the agenda. We have a second public portion after we vote on our agenda items. You can return and address it then. Thank you. Did you have anything else? Okay, next caller, please.
Hi, good evening. I'd just like to thank, Tori Esposito, Woodlot Road. I'd just like to thank Dr. Toback and the members of the board for listening to the 77% of parents who are also taxpayers who want their children to go back to school. I keep hearing this word safe. When will it be safe? Is the vaccine going to make it safe? Will everybody be mandated to get this vaccine? The same WEA members who are complaining that it's not safe, I hope they all enjoyed their summer vacation. I hope they get all of their groceries at the supermarket. I hope that all of their kids play their sports in the summer, or they actually go to the town pool and interact with other kids. What you don't hear on the news is the school districts that have opened and have had no cases. It's amazing to me that daycares could be open. I can go send my kids to the Boys and Girls Club, to the YMCA, to Idea Lab for $1,000 a child, and they can figure out how to make it work. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller. Can you unmute yourself? Okay. Skip that one, Dr. Bouchard. They've spoken already, and go to the next one.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Linden. I have been a social worker in the Wayne Public Schools for the past 27 years. I have always worked in multiple schools, and I am currently assigned to 3 different schools. I would like to get some information about teachers and staff who will be traveling to different schools throughout the school day or school week. Will we be provided with PPE protection for each school that we go into? And what about the issue of us carrying potential germs from one school population to another? My other question is, in all 3 of my child study team offices, there is no possible way for us to socially distance safely with my teammates. None of us have been informed as to how this has been addressed, with school only starting in a couple of weeks. So I'm very curious that we haven't heard from any of our department administrators. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller. You're on.
Klein. I'm a teacher at Wayne, also a resident, 476 Terhune Drive. I just wanted to know, I keep hearing that, I just need clarification, that's all. 80% of the parents asked to go back to full-time in-person learning, but 80% of what? Let's say for the sake of argument, there's 1,000 students in Wayne. Did 1,000 parents answer the survey? I doubt that highly, because I know how hard it is just to get an emergency form back from students. The parents don't always send it back right away. So what are we talking about when we say 80% of the parents? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Hi, my name is Natalia Ortega. I live at 3 Thomas Terrace, and I'm an incoming senior at Wayne Valley. For a lot of the parents who are concerned with their kids going back to school because they feel they're not getting the same education, my junior year, which is the most academically struggling and difficult year of my academic life because it prepares me for going into college, was cut short, and I had to do the 3 most important months of it online for AP testing, and we had no finals. So the most difficult months of that year I had to do online, and I don't feel comfortable going back to school because I have a grandmother that lives with me at home who, if I were to catch it, because I could be asymptomatic, because children and younger adults are more asymptomatic than they do, or have mild symptoms, I don't want to give it to her, and I don't want to put her at risk. And after hearing a lot of the teachers and other staff members talk about or complain about how the conditions of the school are a perfect breeding ground for this virus, I honestly would prefer a virtual education as opposed to an education that is going to be equally as little, but in person, with the risk of us getting sick and family members sick. So I just hope the board considers that there are other students who have older family members or people with risk at home, and that it's not really safe for us to go back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further hand raised, but one popped up. You're on.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, I'm Zola Casanova. I'm a former teacher and as well as an attorney and a resident of Wayne who has 2 students in high school at Wayne Valley. And I love and I appreciate the model that you've created because it gives everybody options. For those who have sick family members and do not want to return fully, they can virtually study. I have 2 high school students who've got virtually no contact with their teachers at all. I had to intervene to email teachers that still did not respond to me during this model. And I commend as a former teacher, I know it's a hard job. And I had a father who came out of retirement to be a frontline worker at a hospital because it was so important. We have essential workers in every supermarket. And I agree that yes, there is a safety issue, but we have a model where not a 100% attendance will be there. The high school students understand the repercussions of not wearing a mask. They are at a different level. Our virtual learning failed because, at least for what I observed, and private schools are able to return. We have DePaul right in this town who is returning in-person learning. So I have to then I'm still gonna have to pay taxes and pay private tuition in order to get the same level of education for my kids. That's the only option if we do not go back at least with some in-person education, because honestly, the virtual learning failed. It failed because, at least for the high school model that I observed, teachers were absent.
Thank you. Next.
Hello?
You're on.
Hi, Stephen Sundell, 107 Maplewood Avenue. I just want to say that as well thought out as the return to school plan was for hybrid, there's no plan that's perfect. I mean, you still have teachers that are there full-time, 100%. You still have parents that are going to be relied upon to take temperatures. We know that that's not going to always happen. You've got situations where kids are going to be allowed to play sports, which kind of null and voids the whole point of keeping people in cohorts. And although no plan is perfect, our son did the remote learning, obviously, last year, and it was fine. So Mr. Sardi was correct in saying that there aren't enough preparations that are taking place, even though they say there are preparations in place. There's no hand sanitizer. My wife teaches in a different district. It's the same thing. So whatever is being told to you about the preparations that the schools are taking is not happening. It's a myth. So you're not going to have the PPE. You're not going to have the sneeze guards. You're not going to have anything that is being put into these plans. So I think the best thing is to keep the teachers safe, keep the kids safe, and just go full remote. Thank you.
Next.
Ms. Kazan, the other 2 callers have an older version of Zoom, and we're not able to accept them in. But there's 2 more that just raised their hand.
Okay, so Lisa Carbone and Randy Porch, you'll need to call in for the next public portion. We can't admit you. And I see 2 other hands raised.
Hello, my name is Claudia Shalego and I teach at Wayne Hills High School. I'm hearing all the sides of everybody that everybody's saying, and I just want to, with my heart in my hands, tell you that the teachers did not fail in the spring. We worked very hard to do the best we could with what we were given, and part of the reason why the students were not in contact with teachers was because administration did not require students to join Zoom meetings when teachers had the Zoom meetings. There were meetings I set up with students that I had no one there, or maybe 1 or 2 students. So I just wanted to put that out there. The teachers did not fail. We tried our best, and the students were not required to do that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Andrea McHale, 82 Hershey Road. Many high school bathrooms at Valley are often locked and not available to students. I hope that all bathrooms will be open and available to our children to allow for less bathroom traffic. I'm just wondering, how can we be assured that soap dispensers won't be empty like they are on a normal day? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Art Dardia, Poplar Road. I just have a quick question about the plan to go back and how a potential change to go full remote might make us question some of the past meetings' contents around reduction in force for paras. I'm wondering if the board deems themselves to have a fiduciary responsibility to the Wayne taxpayer. And if we do go full remote, will that matter be revisited and discussed in order to save funds for the district?
Okay. Next caller.
Hi, my name is Marian Carroll. I am a proud Wayne school teacher. I have been a teacher in the district for the past 20 years. First of all, I want to say thank you for all of your hard work, for putting many hours, countless hours back into a plan. I also want to say thank you very much to the high school students who have spoken up. We taught you well. So thank you for speaking up for what you believe in. I have never spoken at a board meeting before, but I feel the need to now. It's in regards to the reopening plan. I have watched the past several board meetings over 8.5 hours. I was listening to the community meeting, and I am left with so many questions. And in regards to the public who think so many of us have just spent the time on the beaches this summer, I just want many of you to know that for me personally, I have spent countless hours trying to figure out ways to make this work for the students in my class. They are my children, and anybody that I've ever taught will tell you, those kids are my kids. And I feel so strongly about not reopening because the district is not ready. I have been in school several times, not at the beach, but in school the past several days, trying to get my room ready and realizing this is not going to be a normal year. Thinking that I'm going to be standing in front of a classroom 6 feet away from the children, I can't help them hold their pencil correctly. If they can't log onto a website, I can't come near them. So if that's what the expectation in the minds of some people think, if that's what it is to be learning and a good teacher, that's not what we want. We don't want to go virtual, but it's not safe to go back in the school. Our buildings are not ready. I could tell you from my own building, windows don't open, we don't have screens, floors are not marked. These poor custodians, where is all their PPE? We already know that a custodian already contacted the virus, and it's scary. So I'm urging you to please rethink your plan. Let us go virtual, but give us the professional development so we could do our jobs. We could do it well. We can be successful if you give us that chance. Please let us have that opportunity. So thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. You're on.
Hi, my name is Maria Gennard, 27. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little, but.
Yes, this is Maria Gennard. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit. Maria Gennard, 27 Terrace Road. I am also a proud Wayne teacher. My main concern is the ventilation. Now, this seems to be the big issue with this virus. And our rooms, the way the windows are, it's all glass, and the only air that comes in are through two little 2x4 squares on each side of each window. The science rooms in particular, where I teach, are pretty big rooms. So opening the windows a few inches more, I don't know how much air I'm gonna get in there. Opening the door, I face a wall. So I don't understand how I'm gonna get circulation of air into that room. And I am very, very concerned about this. And again, I also wanted to thank you for all your hard work, because this is a daunting task. But I really feel in my heart that we are not ready for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. My name is Jody Trebajian. I live at 37 Smith Lane. I am calling in on this meeting because initially I thought I'd be here listening to plans to, not allow the children to go back to the hybrid learning model, but I'm hearing a lot of concerns from the teachers. As a nurse on the front lines of this virus, I understand their concerns of not having PPE. In my hospital, when we did not have it, there was a ton of anxiety for us working in this environment. I don't understand, we're August 20th at this point, why there's not hand sanitizer in the schools, why it's not marked for the teachers. These are simple things that we can do to make them feel more comfortable. I want my children in the classroom. Many people want their children in the classroom. My children will be participating in the hybrid learning model, which I wish they were going every day, in all honesty. But I am happy that they can go 2 half days, and I will do whatever they need me to do. I will have my children in a mask. They will wear a face shield. I will have them wear gloves if you want them to, okay? Because I know the importance of them being in the classroom, but these are simple things at this time that I feel that the Board of Education can address to make the teachers feel comfortable. When you feel that you are being supported in doing everything you can to protect the teachers, then everyone's gonna be happy. The parents are gonna be happy, the teachers are gonna be happy. This is a very challenging situation. It's unprecedented. But we can't live in a bubble either. And I just think there's simple things. Possibility of hiring more custodial staff as well. I don't know if that's been discussed, to have more support, to clean the bathrooms, to make sure the desks are being cleaned, the railings, all of these things. I heard there's no hand sanitizer, PPE for the teachers, the custodial staff being concerned as well, the secretaries having concerns. These are simple things we can do. So let's do it. Let's help them. Let's support them. Let's go back to school. Let's work on this together. Let's support each other. And let's all be successful and show the rest of the state that we can do this. We can do this together, and we can put our children and our teachers and everyone have their best intentions and work together for the best possible outcomes. This is not difficult. These are simple things we can do. And these things should be done now. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is that an older model, Dr. Bouchard?
No, she had spoken earlier.
Okay. All right, we're going to end this public portion for now. Can I get a mover? You can speak at the next portion. Mr. Bubba, Mrs. Putta. Okay. Dr. Toback, would you like to address some concerns now or go through our agenda? You're on mute.
That was a long session. Sorry about that. I could address quite a few.
It was a common thread. I figured you could address it when it was over.
Yeah. So I do agree. And like I said, I had intended to recommend to the board that potentially we could go to at least a delayed opening to allow some of the types of questions that you are hearing to be addressed. Okay. Because ultimately when teachers do return to their classrooms, they have questions, they have concerns, there are details that need to be addressed But as I said before, when I called the county superintendent, there are issues that ultimately our request would not meet what they believe would be the requirements for us to go to start the school virtually. Now, I guess I can go in reverse order. There's one of the concerns, especially with the recent caller, that there's no hand sanitizer, there's no custodial no custodial staff, there's not ample PPE. It's just not true. There's more than ample PPE, but we don't distribute the PPE before it's needed. So ultimately, we have a central location for our PPE. Our principals have PPE, but at this point in the year, our teachers are not back in the buildings for the most part. There might be some that come in every now and again to to decorate the classrooms, to get organized for the year. And we understand that. So the district does have more than adequate supplies to get the school year started. We have more than enough PPE that will be available for staff members and students. We have 2 masks for each staff member. As far as sneeze guards, I know that question has come up quite a few times, but sneeze guards are not required. Sneeze guards are a possible tool that could be used, but in the end, the masks are what we do require, and that is really the main thing. As far as the ventilation system, just wanted to mention that we did have our HVAC engineer take a look at our plan. Ultimately, our plan does meet a number of requirements and a number of standards, and so as far as like dampers being opened to allow more fresh air, that is something that has been done. As far as our ability to run our HVAC systems 24/7, that's something we'll do once we're up and running. As far as the classroom windows, we're doing an assessment around the district about which windows are difficult to open or which windows can only be opened a little bit. Again, there's a safety standard that also exists in second floors that ultimately we keep the windows, because ultimately there was a case a few years ago where there was a student that jumped out of a second floor window. Not in Wayne, another community, but that caused a lot of school districts to change how wide you can open second floor windows. Okay, regardless, if there are staff members that don't have something in their classroom that they need, ultimately there is a work order system. So for any staff members that called in and were concerned about something that they do need in their classroom, certainly their administrator or the work order system would likely yield at least some kind of positive result or response. And you can find out a little bit more about the concern you have. As far as Mr. Dardia's question about the reduction in force, of course, any decision, and that's probably something that is being lost in this discussion, but if we were to go fully virtual, that would certainly be a significant discussion for the board when it comes to discussing if you are going to be fully virtual for the year. What about the futures of the bus drivers that we have working in the district? What about the future of the paras that we have working in the district? I mean, those are significant questions. And like I said, if we were fully virtual, there would be even less work to go around. So that would have a major impact on employment in this community. So I guess overall, I guess one of the staff members called in about students not appearing in their class. Certainly that's a situation where the administration should be contacted if you don't see students reporting to your class on a regular basis. That's not acceptable. And again, that's a concern that any staff member should report to the building principal. As far as signage on floors and signage on walls and things like that, that is something the district is working on, but we'll certainly be ready to go when we get to September and when the buildings are ready to open. But again, going back to and Ellen Klein asked a question about exactly where the number 80% came from when we're talking about parents wanting their students to return to class, okay, so, or their children. So we have, basically the most recent number is that we have about 1,700 students out of about 7,600. I don't have the exact number on me, but that is the number of students. So now we're down to 77% of the students that will be returning of our total enrollment. So the number is 77% of students. Then the other question was about, and a concern that was expressed, which is certainly a very important concern. If there are situations where students or staff members have, they have a situation where they have a relative at home, particularly for students. If you are living in a multi-generational house, I know we have a number of students in that situation. And so those are decisions that have to be made by the family regarding the level of risk that's acceptable. Ultimately, full virtual instruction is available for all students. And so that's something that Governor Murphy made available. So if there is any situation where there's a student in a multi-generational home, you have the ability to receive virtual instruction. The other question was about testing. So we've reached out to the county and also to our local Department of Health, and we're working on a rapid testing program. And so there's a rapid testing program that we're going to have a schedule for sometime soon. It's not required. Obviously, we can't force students to go have a test for just for screening purposes. That's something we don't right now have the capacity to do. But we will have a program available if parents would like to have their child screened. So we are working on that. I guess I think I answered many of the questions.
I think you have as well. Okay, so we'll move on to the agenda. Start with the J items. Approval of minutes. Can I get a mover?
Move.
Mrs. Scher. Mrs. Kumar. This is at the point where we'll also give our committee reports before we call roll. Who would like to go first? I'm sorry, Mr. Moffett?
I'm holding the roll until after the committee reports.
It's part of the agenda item, so it's what I would do, yeah.
I'll go first, Mrs. Kazan.
Thank you, Mr. Bubba.
Okay, tonight facilities and transportation met with myself, Mrs. Kazan, Mrs. Putup, Mr. Meso, Mr. Moffett, and Mr. Skibitsky, who is taking over transportation for the moment. So we started tonight's discussion with the Early Childhood Center. We are in the final stages of completion. We have received our certificate of occupancy. Furniture's in place, technology is being put in place. We are in a really good spot with that. We also discussed the dedication garden and bench. It's all laid out. I'm waiting for the plaque for Suzanne Karansky, which is something we wanted to do to honor her. We discussed the ESIP 2 update, and we're in the final language being done with the attorney, and we should be approved. Financing is in place, so we will be doing our second ESIP, which is something that very few districts get to do as far as energy savings. We also discussed every few years that the organization undergoes a review for efficiency. So Mr. Meso is looking at ways to make the department more efficient. So we also talked about having cleaning baselines set up in the schools. Mr. Meso is going to have that wrapped up hopefully in the next week. And then each school will have a baseline and it will be kept up for the whole year as necessary. And we lost power in 9 schools during the last storm, which is kind of unnerving. And during the summer isn't so bad, but it's really pointed out the fact that 5 or 6 of our schools need generators. So that has to be something that as a board we need to start looking at in our next budget cycle, to start trying to figure out how to get the generators on all the schools, because we have to put a custodian in every school where there's no power because they have to do fire watch because we have no alarm systems. So it ends up costing us money long term. So then we switched over to transportation. Oh, one other thing about the I forgot from facilities. We happened to see pictures of the warehouse full of PPE tonight. So Mr. Meso has assured us that we have plenty to start the year with. They are all ready to go, and we have met the standards that the state has asked us to meet. So now we'll move over to transportation, which I'll start there with transportation. So they are also in the right place as far as all their procedures with COVID-19. They are all set and ready to go. Routing is in the final stage. They had to add 15 routes because of the Early Childhood Center. So it's been a little tricky getting all the routes in order, but they are ready to go. Mandatory driver and aid training schedule has been set, and they are all set to be ready to go on the 8th when school opens. There were some minor issues with the bus conditions of after the shutdown, because the one thing that buses and diesel engines don't like to do is sit. So we had some repairs that had to be done, but they were all taken care of. Our state inspection is underway. The state has been here sporadically, so we're ready, and we've been waiting for them to just come in and certify everything. We're good until the end of September. That's the extension that the state put on it, because they don't have enough people at the moment. Let's see, we need to look at security again down at the bus depot at North Cove, because we've had a theft of a catalytic converter, and as we all know, they can be very expensive. And also the last thing we discussed was the department is also going to undergo a review for efficiency. They've already made a couple of minor changes to make things better, and they will continue to do so over the next several months. And that is my report, as long as it was.
Thank you, Mr. Bubba. A lot on the agenda. Mrs. Albanese?
Thank you. The Finance Committee met last night, Wednesday. Board members in attendance: Eileen Albanese, Matt Giordano, Catherine Kazan. Administrators in attendance: Bill Moffett, who's the business administrator. And we all had the opportunity to meet our new assistant business administrator, Cheryl Leidig. We'd like to welcome her to the district. She seems already to have hit the ground running. I already got some paperwork from her today, and she seems to be settling in and learning the ropes. We had discussed the agenda items that are on tonight's agenda. One that we wanted to highlight was a new contract for Dr. David Goldberg from St. Joseph's Hospital. He's a pediatric specialist in infectious disease. I think he'll be a huge asset to the district for the multitude of questions that I'm sure we'll have. And, he'll be there for us as a consulting resource. We did sign today a budget transfer. It was for a rather large amount of money. This was to pay for those PPE supplies that apparently are stored in that warehouse. We also talked about the Amoresco, the ESIP 2 project. Mr. Bubba reported on that, so I won't go through that detail again. The purchase order for carding is still open. We had some budget updates, some discussion for district reopening plans. We may have some financial concerns in our extended day programs, that's our before and after school program, our food service operations. So we had a discussion about how and when we'll be looking at those numbers. The Early Childhood Center, budget-wise on track, more importantly, ready to go, no change orders. Looks like it was a job well done. We also discussed the October Board of Ed convention based on the fact that it will be virtual this year based on the New Jersey School Boards Association. There will be a virtual fee for all Wayne attendees. It will be a significant savings to the board. In addition to live programs, live discussions, those discussions will be, what's the word? You'll be able to archive, thank you. You'll be able to review those anywhere for a year. So you can really do those training programs at your own leisure. And many of the mandatory board trainings for board members will also be done at that time. So it will be a very good savings for the board rather than the in-person trips that we've done in the past. That's our report. And again, welcome to our new assistant business administrator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Albanese. Who else met this week? Mrs. Scher?
Today, Personnel Committee met with myself, Ms. Kumar, Mr. Pavlak, and Ms. Paula Clark. We reviewed the Personnel Committee minutes from July 16th. We reviewed any questions we had regarding human resources items on tonight's agenda. We discussed the new employee orientation that Dr. Toback had mentioned that happened outside under tent, but we were told went very well. We reviewed the reasonable accommodation process that's been put in place for staff members, and the survey data, which we've already discussed, the 77%. The para staffing, they should be getting their placements by next week. And just that about the, excuse me, the subs that we are putting in place. There's going to be 2 permanent subs at every school, and there's already 3 at the high schools. And we are approving many subs because we're trying to minimize how many schools the subs can go to so that we can minimize exposure. So most of the subs will be placed at 1 or 2 schools, and that's where they will stay for as long as we need them. And that was pretty much it.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Putta.
Thank you. The Education Committee met this morning at 10 a.m. Mrs. Kumar, Mrs. Scher, and myself, along with Mrs. Dawn Auerbach, who is our administrative liaison. We reviewed minutes from last month, and then we went through the agenda for today's meeting. The Learning Center will be hosting virtual PD for our teachers. Elementary Spanish has expanded to a full curriculum cycle from K to 5th now that we've had the program in place for a while. The Amplify Science program will include more virtual labs for this year. And this has come up before, the New Jersey state mandate for diversity. Studies will include contributions to our society by members of the LGBTQ community and those with disabilities. These curriculum mandates will be included in social studies, psychology, or language arts classes. They do not involve anything with sex education or health classes. This just has to do with contributions of a diverse society. Thank you very much.
Isn't there a policy meeting?
No.
Mr. Pavlak? There wasn't a policy meeting? Did I miss something? Okay. All right, my mistake. Okay, you can call roll now, Mr. Moffett, on the J items.
Yes, there's a motion by Mrs. Shear, seconded by Mrs. Kumar, and we call roll. Mrs. Albanese,
Yes.
Mr. Bubba,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mrs. Kumar,
Yes.
Mr. Pavlak,
Yes.
Mrs. Putup,
Yes.
Mrs. Shear,
Yes.
and Mrs. Kazan.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. At this point, if someone would like to move the balance of the agenda, that would be appropriate, or we could do it individually.
Madam President, based on the number of people we have in attendance, I'm sure a number of them wanted to speak tonight. I would move the entire agenda at this point up until the
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pavlak. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Bubba? Any discussion on any of the agenda items for tonight? Okay. Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Bubba,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mrs. Kumar,
Yes.
Mr. Pavlak,
Yes.
Mrs. Putup,
Yes.
Mrs. Shear,
Yes.
Mrs. Albanese,
Yes.
and Mrs. Kazan.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. This portion of the meeting is open to citizens for comment on any topic. Residents are to state their names, addresses, and subject matter. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person. Members of the public are discouraged from speaking negatively about an employee or a student. The board bears no responsibility for comments made by the public. Comments regarding employees or students cannot be legally responded to by the board. Other comments may be responded to tonight or at subsequent meetings under old business. Can I get a mover?
I'll move.
Chair, Mr. Bubba. Okay, first caller.
Hello, my name is Katie Cluck. I am a voter and I live at 34 Hellcrest Drive. The Instagram and Facebook page, Racism in Wayne Schools, posted a student story saying, in my freshman year, a student asked my history teacher if it was okay to call Japanese people by a racial slur from the 40s. He said yes. The same teacher did nothing when a student told me, go back to your country. This is my country, and to watch him do nothing was extremely hurtful. As a woman of color and a gay person, I am also concerned about the culture in Wayne schools. I have read your current plans and commitments to diversity and inclusion. I do not think they are enough. We need transparency in the committees and plans. We need to see you are sticking to your commitments. Please consider making sure the meetings of subcommittees, specifically for the mascot, as well as plans to diversify the education, are made public as they go on, and that they continue to meet. To leave out people of color from history and English classes is not only harmful to students of color, but inaccurate, harming white students as well. We need to make sure that the voices of people of color are not optional. We need to make sure we are teaching history accurately, because people of color aren't an elective. We have always been here. We need to make sure when teachers talk about race, they are doing so in an appropriate manner. There's no excuse for the teachers saying racial slurs, and they definitely should not be saying the N-word. That's just not okay. Any teacher trainings must focus on both implicit bias as well as cultural sensitivity, and they must be ongoing as our conversations surrounding race continue to change. We cannot claim to support inclusion while also supporting the Indian mascot. The National Congress for American Indians have said they do not agree with these mascots. We need a verbal confirmation that this will change. Even if it is gradual, the commitment must be made if we wish to start making our community inclusive. We must listen to people of color and the experts. Thank you. Please consider to stick to your commitments, continue to strive for inclusion, and continue to be transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, my name is Lisa Carbone. I live at 27 Dixon Place, also a teacher in district. This is going to be my 14th year at Randall Carter. Like other callers have said, I've never called in or spoken at a board meeting, but like some others, feel very strongly to have my voice heard as well. So I'd actually like to offer a dissenting opinion. So I understand that this is a loaded issue and it's complicated, but I feel like it's important for not only the Board of Education members to know, but also the superintendent to know that you have a large majority of staff who feel safe returning to work, are willing to return to work, and want to be in the classroom with our students. Just like through this pandemic, there's been many essential workers. I feel like we are essential workers. So, I mean, there's a couple of points to consider. I feel like just like students have been given, parents have been given the option to, if they feel unsafe, remain totally virtual. Teachers also have options to keep themselves safe. And I also feel like there's a lot of studies behind the fact that, and I come from the elementary world, of course, but that children 10 and under are less likely to be infected and less likely to transmit the virus. And I think that's something to be considered as well. The other thing to consider too is that virtual learning, I think most people would agree, does not hold a candle to in-person learning. So, I mean, children desperately need the socialization as well. And there's nothing like being in a classroom with your students to, really drive points home. So I just want to say that I acknowledge it's a complicated issue. The virus is not going away anytime soon. And I think it would be not only foolish, but detrimental to think that we should be consistently virtual until, a vaccine would be available. So that's just my 2 cents. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the time and effort that you all have put in to making a hybrid plan that sort of benefits everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller.
Hi, thank you. Donna Reaver again. I just wanted to re-ask my question from before, Dr. Toback. Did you in fact sign the attestation document, the one that certifies that the district is ready and that our plan satisfies all of the necessary criteria? In regards to what Mr. Bubba and Dr. Toback did say before regarding, enough PPE to quote unquote start the school year, which I think is an interesting way to put it. How can you say we have enough PPE when our own secretaries just told you that we don't? They have been asking for it since July and they don't have it. So I'm a little concerned with what we have enough to start the year means. And I also just wanted to say congratulations, that I'm really proud and I'm so happy that your School Boards Association decided to go with a virtual convention. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Gaber, 1051 Ratzer Road, and I will be a senior at Wayne Hills this year. I want to discuss with you the racism and prejudice in the Wayne school system among the curriculum, faculty, and students. I'm going to read to you a post from the Racism in Wayne Schools page where students and alumni have shared many of their experiences with racism in the school system. Here it is. This past school year, we were discussing 9/11 in my history class, and my teacher made a comment that after the incident, whenever she would take the subway, she would hope and pray that there would be no Muslims on the train. And she said this in front of Muslim students. I'm not Muslim, but I don't have to be to recognize that what she said wasn't okay, and it's extremely xenophobic how she assumed that every Muslim is a terrorist. As a Muslim girl who has been in Wayne schools since first grade, this story is far too familiar. I understand that you have a lot on your plate right now dealing with reopening and coronavirus safety and have already released an outline for addressing this issue. But teacher trainings need to be annual and accurate, and the committee to reevaluate the Wayne Valley mascot must be unbiased and transparent because, quite frankly, the mascot is blatantly racist, disrespectful, and undermines the Wayne Schools No Place for Hate and other anti-discrimination initiatives. The school's curriculum also needs to be adjusted. I'm asking for you to adhere to the change.org petition with over 5,300 signatures to diversify the curriculum and intend to increase to at least 10% of social studies content to be about Black history and Black leaders. The achievements of people of color need to be taught. The intersectionality of the racism in the women's movement needs to be taught. The plights of Native Americans and the continuing injustice faced by them needs to be taught. And it needs to be taught in the elementary, middle, and high schools, as many of the anecdotes on the Instagram page span across all three. If people of color are able to experience racism at these ages, they're old enough to learn about it. There must also be attention to how these subjects are taught to make sure that they aren't triggering for people of color, as methods can do more harm than good. Some people need to also be held accountable for their actions, all of their actions, not just taking actions when there is bullying, but also when there is microaggressions, gaslighting, and cultural appropriation. You are responsible for educating the next generation. Please do so with attention to the social issues they face every day. That is it.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Diane Lee. I'm from 16 Kimberly Place. I wanted to comment on the Wayne Valley mascot issue. Alright. So the Wayne Valley mission statement states that the goal is to provide a safe environment that promotes tolerance and respect for others. One of our core beliefs is that there is to be tolerance for cultural, racial, religious, ethnic, and individual differences. I believe that these are beautiful and great words that are put up on our website, and it makes our school look great. But to be honest, I'm not sure if we have the right to be saying this when our school mascot, the Indians, is offensive, it stereotypes, and it degrades the whole community. We are not respecting the cultural nor the individual differences of these people. Putting them up as a mascot degrades them lower than a human being, depicting them as a red, angry savage in our mural and not respecting them. The words of our mission statement should not just be words on a website, but words of meaning and weight. It's time we stop deceiving ourselves that we are great and fine the way we are. We'll never be perfect. I really understand that. We're all human. But it's time we follow our own words and our own beliefs that we set ourselves and actually become a community that honors and respects the cultural differences of everyone, including the Native Americans. It will not be easy, but this issue has come up many times before and will continue to come up. I understand that there have been many issues and circumstances that have made this change hard to achieve, for sure, a lot of big ones, but there will always be problems and there will always be issues. So I sincerely ask that this will no longer be neglected, but that this is taken into serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, my name is Kristen, and I am at 3 Grover Drive, and I'm a Wayne Valley graduate, and I would like to share a Wayne Hills student's experience with racism in their high school. And it reads as this. A kid in my class was making fun of an Asian freshman. We were the only Asians in the class, and he asked if the freshman had the coronavirus while pulling his eyes back. The look of confusion and the awkward laugh truly reflected how embarrassed and conflicted he was. And this story was shared through the Instagram account Racism at Wayne Schools, and is also available on Facebook. And I just wanted to come on and say that, share the story, because sometimes we get so caught up in our own little bubble, especially in our predominantly white town, that we don't realize that there's a lot of racism, sexism, xenophobia in our town. We don't realize it because we don't experience it ourselves. So I think it's really important that we continue to amplify the voices of people who have experienced this, because the first step to creating positive change in our town is to listen to each other and have empathy, because then once we learn what's going on, we can do something about it. So thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you. Next caller.
Maria Gennard, 27 Terrace Road. Again, I am a teacher here at Wayne and proud to be so. And I just wanted to say, Dr. Toback, I want nothing more than to come to school. I love my kids. I love being there. And I'm sure that I speak for everyone who has called in tonight. So for the speaker who spoke before, we do want to come. It's not about not wanting to come to school, but we have apprehensions. We have been told for 5 months, keep your windows open. Don't get together. You can't go in. Be outside. So yes, we are apprehensive. It has nothing to do with wanting to go or not wanting. Everything to wanting to go, but not being able to go. And as far as having choices, not everyone has a choice to return. I don't have a medical issue that will impede me from going to school. However, I do take care of an elderly parent. So if I contract the virus or something happens, I come home to that parent. And I just heard that the president is deciding that maybe teachers are essential workers and they are not going to be held to the quarantine exceptions. The new teachers don't have the sick days to take for an extended amount of time. So no, we don't have a choice. And yes, we want to be in school. We want to educate our kids, but we want to make sure that we're safe, and we are apprehensive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller. Do you know what the problem is, Dr. Bashar?
Hope needs to unmute herself.
Can you unmute yourself? Okay, try again. Next caller.
Hi, my name is Amanda Keel. I'm a resident of 11 Almadeer Drive. I want to thank the Board of Ed for working hard to plan for the school year. And
Can you speak a little louder or closer to your microphone? I can't hear you.
I want to thank the Board of Ed for working hard to plan this school year, including promoting diversity, equity, and inclusivity. As a student, it means a lot to know that we're doing as much as possible in all ways to create a safer environment for students. I want to talk about the Wayne Valley mascot. It is racist and insensitive, but also harmful in other ways. There's decades of research to show that Indigenous mascots have harmful effects on the educational experiences of all students. The American Psychological Association called for a removal of all American Indian mascots in 2005 after publishing research showing their negative effects, including diminishing educational experiences of all students who have minimal contact with Indigenous people, creating unwelcoming environments for Indigenous students, fostering racist stereotypes, and portraying Indigenous cultures inaccurately. We are sending Wayne Valley students the wrong message through the use of our Indian mascot. And like a student said before, it goes against the initiatives meant to combat racism. It's not our right as non-natives to decide how this culture is portrayed, and the mascot must be removed. And even during a time of uncertainty with the pandemic, the retirement of this mascot is just as important a part of creating a better and safer environment for all students. And also concerning the subcommittee, I want to ask for transparency of who the committee members are and what's happening at those meetings. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Ida Ferrante, Wayne President of the Education Association. I just want to clarify one of the comments that Ms. Carbone made when she talked about that there are plenty of teachers that want to go back into schools. And while they may, I just want to let people know that the overwhelming percentage of members of teachers and secretaries and staff that have an issue far outweigh the small minority of teachers and staff that I'm getting emails from saying that they'd like to go in. And I'd also like for somebody to answer and to comment on Ms. Shalago's comment about students in the spring not being required to log into classes at set times and not being forced to Zoom, because that was that was part of the problem in the spring. And it is really heartbreaking when parents say that teachers left kids to, learn on their own and to, fend for themselves. Teachers worked very hard over the spring, and I'm confident that teachers will work even harder and train even more so should it come to all virtual instruction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
You're on.
Hi. My name's Timothy Thompson, 138 Lowey Avenue, and today I want to read an anonymous story from the Racism in Wayne Schools Instagram page. Quote, in first grade at AP Terhune, a kid told me that my parents were terrorists and were going to be killed by the police just because I wore a turban on my head. In second grade, I was told I could not enter a part of the playground because I did not have white skin by a student. This is just one of over 90 stories that have been submitted to the Instagram page in the past month. What is the Board of Ed doing to make these kids feel safe? I acknowledge and thank the board for incorporating diversity into their district goals, but we need a thorough, transparent plan that allows the student body and families to hold Wayne schools accountable. Same thing with changing the mascot and diversifying the curriculum so that kids are learning about all racial, ethnic, religious, gender, and sexual identities in a substantial way. These plans can be gradual and incremental, but there needs to be a plan. I understand that this is a tricky time with COVID-19, but we have talked to a number of sources who claim that these two issues don't need to be mutually exclusive. We can address both as other schools have, but most importantly, as someone whose safety and life has previously been threatened by homophobia in Wayne schools, I hope you will see that addressing prejudice within the school is just as important as addressing this pandemic. Unless something is done, these kids, your kids, will continue to be subjected to careless incidents of prejudice and violence from both students and faculty. I know because I have experienced it personally myself. I support the steps that Racism in Wayne Schools is calling on and the board to take. I hope you're writing this down. 1, expand the curriculum, i.e. incorporating minority history and recontextualizing how we see colonization. 2, setting up a task force that is diverse and transparent at each school to address incidents of prejudice, harassment, and bias. 3, regular teacher trainings to educate them on why it's important to not do things like single out our Muslim students, chase Black students with do-rags, say the N-word, or spew incorrect facts about the LGBTQ community. And 4, to change the mascot. Mascots are not human beings. Ways that you can be transparent includes sending public updates when you meet to talk about diversity and inclusion. Again, it does not have to happen all at once, but please, we need a plan. We need phases and we need transparency. I don't want another minority child to have to go through Wayne Schools experiencing what I did. And that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Lily Madar, 23 Bullens Avenue. I am a student currently attending Wayne Valley High School. I want to talk about the racial issues in our school. We have many amazing Wayne activist social media pages. I need to know if we are being heard. As a person of color and a minority in the school, I do not feel safe or included. I feel ignored by students in the school curriculum. I feel ignored by the board. Here's an example that my own brother and I go through. I practice a religion called Sikhism. In this religion, I'm supposed to wear, my brother is supposed to wear a turban. I am supposed to keep long hair. My brother is only 10 years old. He has been going through this for years. He gets harassed in school for wearing a turban. He gets asked, are there rocks in there? Like, are you kidding me? He's 8 years old. This should not be happening. So many students have shared their stories, and I think it's disgusting that there's hundreds of people coming out with their stories. It really shows the racism in our schools. Another thing I want to bring up is the mascot. I believe that the mascot portrays the opposite of what our district goals for this year are. What I'm asking for is inclusivity, equality, and understanding. This is the perfect opportunity for the board to bring a positive change. Indians is not an appropriate mascot. It makes indigenous groups seem like savages. We know this already. This negative point of view on an entire race is not what we want to represent our entire school and town. I know you're creating committees to diversify the schools. Please make the members of this committee public so we can personally reach out and email them too. I'm asking that you record each and every single meeting with this committee and make it public so we can review it. We want absolute transparency in every single step of the way. We want access to absolutely everything so we can have a say too. We have so many brilliant ideas to make our school more safer and inclusive. For example, one major step is banning the appropriation of indigenous cultures during sports game. Native headgear, face paint, and other cultural items should not be allowed. Most students do not even know the meaning of or the value of these. Why? Because we're not taught in our school curriculum, another sign of the lack of diversity in our towns. We want transparency, and we want to know how you will be adjusting the curriculum in every single school. We want the list of required books so we can review it too. The curriculum needs to change, everything needs to change. What I'm asking for is really simple. There are so many ways we could bring positivity. You guys can do it, you guys need to do it. Please do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Marissa Budnick. I'm at 38 Clinton Lane. This is a story from the Racism in Wayne School's Instagram account. In 8th grade, my social studies teacher was giving a lesson about 9/11, and she started the class with asking, "Who in here is Muslim?" I was the only Muslim student in the room, and I raised my hand and felt completely singled out for no reason. There have been many stories posted on this Instagram account, and it should be alarming to hear. The fact that this was done by a teacher is horrific. Teachers should never do this and use the N-word, never. But when it comes to the knowledge and awareness of students, diversifying the curriculum is a must. We must expand the curriculum, and it's so wonderful to hear that the state mandated order to put LGBTQIA+ and disability history is in, but let's keep going. In the middle school curriculum, there are 4 Black authors and 1 Latinx author offered to the students. And in 7th and 8th grade, only Langston Hughes pieces are offered. That is unacceptable, especially when middle school is an important time in reading new books and starting to expand their knowledge. The high school curriculum is a bit more diverse, but it's still not enough. At least there are Native American, Asian, and Arab authors, but there needs to be more offered. And again, they cannot be optional. Making these authors' material mandatory will give students so much more perspective of the cultural diversity we have in this country and world. Racism in Wayne School's Instagram has 4 steps to take. Expand the curriculum, set up a task force where there is discussion on school climate, teacher training to cease ignorant phrases and bystander intervening, and changing the mascot. All we ask for is transparency. Please be specific and talk about this in your meetings on what you plan to do. As Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill said in a meeting with my friends and me, diversifying the curriculum and adjusting to COVID and diversity in general shouldn't be two mutually exclusive topics. In other words, they can be addressed effectively at the same time. We are counting on you. Also, opening up schools is a life or death situation. Kids may be antsy and missing their friends while at home, but in school, they won't even be able to play with or touch their friends. I am in full support of virtual instruction. And please vote to change the mascot, the Wayne Valley mascot. Again, this shouldn't be pushed to the side. I understand you plan on looking into all mascots in Wayne, but we need more details and a plan. This can be done incrementally. We need to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Next. You're on. Hello?
Hi, do you guys hear me?
Yes. Name and address, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Amy Camper, 50 Oakley Way. Wasn't sure when I would be able to get on. So basically my point is just to, first of all, thank each and every one of you because you had no summer and this has been an undertaking like nobody ever could have thought about. I thank you all very much. I'm just worried about some of the comments tonight in regards to, you know, is there actually the PPE that was provided? It's in the warehouse. I'm not really sure. Teacher myself, different district, however, but, you know, we have the same concerns. And as a teacher, you want to be prepared, right? So you want to go in. This is the week you go in. So can we give the teachers that availability? And I, you know, personally am keeping my children home for many personal reasons. But I applaud all of you. I really don't know what the answer is. I don't think any of us knows what the answer is to this complete bullshit, to be honest with you. But I think your number one goal is the safety of Wayne, and I thank you all. And that's really all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you for calling. Next.
Good evening again. I just want to start off by saying how absolutely offended I am when I see or I hear some of my former students and some of these students calling in and talking about the horrors of racism while Mr. Bubba is on his personal device laughing. That's not a great optic. It's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. And I guess one of the problems with Zoom, but embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for this district right now that we have somebody like Mr. Bubba that would do something like that. But getting on to a second point. Every day we're hearing about places that open up and just as quickly have to close. Schools constantly. I was gonna watch the Met game tonight. I can't. You know why? They had to shut down. Tomorrow, I wanted to watch the Yankee game. I can't do that either. When are we going to stop as a country making the same mistake? When are you folks going to realize that everybody keeps making the same mistake? I know that I am seriously considering my options as we enter this school year. I am not sure what I am going to do. I know I am in the same boat as many teachers. They do not know whether they're going to come in, whether they're going to have to retire, take sick days, personal days. You're going to have a tremendous staffing problem because you have teachers that are scared to come in. You already have had a hiring freeze in my department. We've already lost 2 people. That means more people in our classrooms, not less. So you have to realize that. So let us be absolutely clear in what we're saying here. The teachers and the secretaries and our teachers are asking this question. How much does my district, the parents, the board, and the upper administration care about my health and safety? What you do here tonight is definitely going to answer that question. You will all have to live with your decision, but we may have to die from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Next caller.
Hello?
Hello, name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Sophie from 24 Littlewood Court.
I'd like to thank the board for all their efforts in response to COVID-19. I'm calling in regards to the Wayne Valley mascot, and I think it needs to be changed. I think this needed to be attended to faster than it has been. I'm not sure why there has to be a subcommittee, why the board can't call a vote so we can see where you all stand and move on. That way the board could focus more on COVID measures and promoting inclusivity, issues that are both essential to the safety and success of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, it's Ellen Klein again. I'm not sure that my question was interpreted correctly the first time. I was just asking, like, I think Dr. Toback said there were 7,500 students. I was wondering how many parents out of the 7,500 actually answered the survey. And then my second question is, I have a little bit of a concern about the health app that the parents are supposed to be. Motion detected. Sorry. The health app that the parents are supposed to be filling out. What about the non-compliant parents? Those kids are going to be able to come into my classroom, and then once we get a report, they go down to the nurse. What if they have symptoms? They've already been exposed to the amount of students that are in my class. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, move to close public session.
Madam President, seeing no one else's hand raised, I move to close.
Mr. Pavlak, Mrs.
Second.
Putup. Okay, would you like to start, Dr. Toback? Answer a few of those questions. You're on mute, sir.
Sometimes that happens when you're not talking for a while. Sorry about that. Okay, so with regard to the comments made by the students, I did actually have an opportunity to review the Racism in Wayne School's Instagram page. It was called to my attention by a former student, and certainly the stories there are deeply disturbing. And so I guess my whole point is that any story like that requires serious attention. But I also like to say that, like I said, there is not much that happens in a school district that is more serious than establishing a district goal. So that is the organizing way that a district places emphasis on issues of importance for a school system. And so I believe the district does have a very reasonable, a very strong response to some of the issues that were raised by the students tonight. I believe that ultimately, and some students have said, well, if we can do this incrementally, ultimately, if there is going to be committee work, it has to be well defined. There has to be key questions that are asked. The committee has to identify how it's going to do its business, so on and so forth. And so all those things have to be set up. That does take time. And so, like I said, I think that we have a very good goal that's been established. I think that it will help the district move into the direction it needs to. And I'm confident that by the end of the goal period next June, the district will be in a much different place when it comes to many of these issues. Okay. With regard to the questions raised by Mrs. Reaver, so what you're talking about, the attestation, is something we discussed during our executive session of the Board of Education at our last meeting. That's something that ultimately there is some aspect of, there's a legal issue connected with that. So that's something that is in process and something that will be done. That's the attestation. There's one part of it that is an issue. So the other concern, the other person that spoke was Ria Ganot. Okay, so I hear the concern in your voice about returning to school. And I guess when I heard your comments, I agree and I understand why you would be concerned about returning to school. And I understand why many of our teachers are concerned about returning to school. But I think rather than having a situation where we're pointing out that in this room there wasn't hand sanitizer, and in this room we weren't sure where our PPE was, even though it's not the time of the year where we've delivered it, the thing to do is work together. And the thing to do is for all of us to start looking at issues, identifying ways that we can work together to make sure that our schools are where they need to be when our students return. One of the issues brought up by Ms. Reaver was that there was a secretary that called in to talk about the lack of PPP at Schuyler Colfax Middle School. That is simply untrue, and I encourage you to go to Schuyler Colfax Middle School tomorrow to take a look at the PPE that is there. And then I guess that's most of the questions and comments.
Okay. More comments? New business, old business? I just want to address the comment of us not being able to do two things at once. We're absolutely doing several hundred things at once. But most specifically, when it comes to this goal and the committee work, we do that when school starts. This is not the time to form the committee. We wait until everyone is back to work. And typically, our committees are not made public. We report out like we did this evening. Tonight was a perfect example of how we are very transparent. Not to call out the town council, but I don't think I've ever heard a committee report over there. But I digress. We do intend to keep you abreast. We will have committee, and we always have goal updates. It's part of our process. And to ask us to just unilaterally make a decision before we've even begun that work is just not fair. I'm sorry. That's not something I would do, and obviously none of my colleagues have raised the emotion. Because we do have to do all of the fact-finding and discussion before we get there. It may seem black and white to some, but it's just not that simple. And that's why we made it a goal. We take it very seriously. And I'm very concerned about this social media page where students are reporting issues of racism. I would much prefer that those reports come to our building, to our HIB coordinators, because those absolutely need to be addressed. There's no reason why any student should be afraid to come forward. If a staff member, which it would need to be reported, it should be reported, or if a fellow student made inappropriate comments. These are all part of our HIB rules and law. So I would hope that you're not suggesting or relying that social media is the place. While it might be a good place to have open discussion amongst friends, it's not the place to report these incidents. As far as the board meeting in person, we've already decided that we will do that in September, and the district will be giving us a model for our first in-person meeting. We do have some board members that may have compromised family members that may choose virtual, just like our parents can choose virtual. As for whether or not we'll include the public, that might be problematic because unlike our students, they're not going to be tested first before they come in for temperatures or whatever, but we'll work that out. And I, for one, will be at that meeting in September. So yes, if you're going to go to work, I will be going to work, and so will the board members that can do that. Because we'll offer them the same options we offer teachers and students for that. And that's all I have, unless there's any further comment from anyone. Move to close. Mr. Pavlak, Mr. Giordano, thank you very much. Have a good night.